I will introduce and begin shortly in German, then switch to English, and also explain that afterwards Mrs. Korenke will then be the moderator and will discuss the things with you. And I cleared with Mr. Wolf that whenever you want to present something, as you asked, you can say, and then he will, if it doesn't work, switch it from his side.
So he is staying with us.
He will stay, even though we don't see him, but he will stay. And if we say help, he will help. Okay. Mr. Wolf, are we ready? Just a final question.
Yes, we are ready and we're live. You can get started.
Ja, vielen Dank. Meine Damen, meine Herren, an dieser Stelle erstmal ein herzliches Willkommen, a very warm welcome to this very special evening. Ein herzliches Willkommen zu diesem spannenden und sicherlich sehr interessanten Abend, der schon mit einigen Hürden begonnen hat, wie Sie gemerkt haben. We already had a few things to fix, but we wanted to work against all the prejudices that Germans are so perfect in organizing that we try to do a little pre-program. Nein, meine Damen und Herren, jetzt freut es mich umso mehr, dass wir die Möglichkeit haben, direkt einzusteigen für die nächste Stunde. Wir haben einen ganz besonderen Gast. We have a very special guest, and I now switch to English so that we will be all clear. I very warmly welcome Doron Almog here with us as our very special guest of honor. And before I introduce him, I want to wish you a happy birthday, because just today, here with us and live on television, we are celebrating, I can say it, his 70th birthday. That he especially took free this evening, that we have the possibility to discuss with him. So happy birthday, Yom Holodet Sameach, Mazel Tov, until 120 plus 1 day. Because a Jewish friend once said to me, why plus 1 day? Because he said, I don't want to die on my birthday. So it's always 120 plus 1 day. That's what I wish you. And thank you again for being with us. A few words to Doron Almog. Many of you probably know him. He has a wonderful and not only interesting, but awesome career in Israel. And so I just point out a few aspects to whom later we can also ask or discuss about after getting a few impressions on how he sees the present situation. He was born in Rishon LeZion as the eldest child of 4 children. He did an amazing career in the Israel Defense Forces. To just point out 2 aspects, he was part of the Entebbe mission to free the civilians on the hijacked airplane. In Entebbe, he was the first on the ground and marked so that the other planes could land safely and that they could free all the civilians there that were held hostage on that time. He was commander of the Southern Command. Later on, after his military career, he not only formed, but went on a new mission for his son to create an environment of support, and was active and still is active at Adi Negev. It's, I would say, a very special place for multiple handicapped children, but not only children, but people. And it is a little place, a little paradise in a very special surrounding that he created and enhanced over the past years. And he can probably tell us a few things later on about a place where really handicapped people get support and love, with rehabilitation also for the whole region. And of course, he also later on received the Israel Prize for his lifetime achievement in 2016 by President Perez. So this is just a few, these are just a few aspects of a very, very, very special person, a good friend. And as you see, even on his birthday, he takes his time, not for himself, but as he's always doing for others, and in this way for us. I would hand over the moderation for the evening to Vice President Claudia Korenke. Ich würde die Regie und die Moderation übergeben heute an meine Vizepräsidentin Claudia Korenke, die nun übernimmt und uns durch den Abend führt und das Gespräch auch mit Doron Almog führt. Again, thank you very much, Doron, for taking your time here with us. And Claudia Korenke will now lead us through the evening.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Mr. Doron, Almog, I'm very glad you made it tonight, and congratulations also from my part. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel is under terror. You all know that. The origin of this terror is Hamas. The situation is catastrophic. It is very, very worrying, and it is at least as severe as it was in 2014. I heard today we have 2 more casualties. Hezbollah, who tries to support Hamas, was shooting from the north. But in addition to that real bad situation in Israel, we have a specific situation in Jewish and Arab Israeli communities, which seem to fight against each other in some communities, like, for example, Lot, and which I am told has the character of like a civil war in some communities. The third situation is that the conflict is being transferred to Europe, and especially important to us, of course, to Germany. While we recruit a lot, but really a lot more sympathy and solidarity with Israel this time as we used to have, on the other side, there is we are facing anti-Semitic acts, anti-Semitic crimes, and shouting in the open shouting in the streets in Germany, like from the river to the sea, or dirty Jews, stuff we didn't face before. Doron Almog, I understand also from your biography that you have a special emphasis on the south of Israel. Maybe you start to describe us a little bit how the situation is at the border of Gaza, how the situation is for the population, and maybe also in the village you created, because people with special needs might be even in a more complicated situation than all others. Thank you.
Okay, so Israel under attack from Gaza. Hamas is shooting rockets and missiles. So the situation among the population, that from time to time we got sirens. Sirens in our town, sirens in the village, sirens in communities. So about it could be between 1 hour to 1 hour or 30 minutes, you got sirens. When you get the sirens, you get early warning of about 30 seconds in the south, 30 seconds to run into a shelter. So that's the time we have for disabled people or ordinary people to run and get inside a shelter. Israel was attacked by some thousands of rockets and missiles in the last week. Hamas is the aggressor. We try also to hit. I mean the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, and our security forces try to hit Hamas in his center of gravity. It means the launchers, the rocket bases, the leadership, and the industry of arms inside Gaza. And the IDF is doing it by surgical means. It means that the number of citizens, Palestinian citizens who were hit by the Israel Defense Forces are very low. I believe that about 200 terrorists were killed until now. Most of them Hamas, about 15 from Jihad. You know, the Islamic Jihad is the second extremist Islamist party in Gaza. Hamas is controlling the administration. So about 15 high caliber from Hamas hierarchy were killed by surgical operation, targeted operation. And right now, we believe that the Hamas is having a lot of long-range missiles. When I say long-range missiles, it means they have the distance from Gaza to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They cover half of Israel, and they can continue raining Israel by missiles and rockets. I don't know until this campaign, this war will continue, but probably it seems to me that the United States is pushing for ceasefire. So it seems to me that very shortly, maybe in 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, we'll get a ceasefire, which is intermission, as a matter of fact, intermission until the next round. The bottom problem that we have terror organization armed with missiles. You know, Gaza Strip is 60 kilometers from Tel Aviv, about 80 kilometers from Jerusalem. Just imagine Berlin, Munich are rained by missiles and rockets, which are shot by terror organization. So we have a terror organization armed with missiles, long-range missiles, and they continue negotiating with the Israeli government from place of power. So I think for the long run, the target should be to dismantle, to demolish all the rockets and missiles which Hamas terror organization continue holding, until it will be good for Israel to come to a negotiation only when Hamas is no more holding missiles and rockets. Maybe continue holding Kalashnikov or small weapons, but not rockets and missiles. That's give them a power in the negotiation and a military power which continue encouraging them to be aggressive and try to split Israel population. Israel population, I mean, we have in Israel about 1.5 million Arabs. So to split between the Jews and the Arabs, Israelis, and try strategically to create a new front. One front attacking Jerusalem, attacking Tel Aviv, attacking our cities, attacking Israel in general. The second front to split the Israeli population between Jews and Arabs, and maybe later to bring more enemies to open a new front, maybe Hezbollah in north of Israel to join. Just 24 hours ago, 3 rockets were shot from the north of Israel, from Lebanon. So, as you know, the second Lebanese war, Israel was attacked by about 4,000 missiles from South Lebanon by Hezbollah. So the military goal of Hamas may be also to bring more enemies to attack Israel. And bottom line, it's about creating a delegitimization of the state of Israel. In general, you know, the Hamas, okay, Israel pulled out from Gaza in 2005. So September 2005, Israel moved out of Gaza and gave the Palestinian 100% of their demands on the territorial demands in Gaza. We pulled out, we destroyed our 19 communities, 19 settlements that were placed inside Gaza. We pulled out from Gaza cemeteries, school, synagogue. We destroyed them by our own hands. We pulled out Israeli citizens out, and we expected now, after giving back the Palestinian in Gaza, after giving back 100% of the land, the Gaza land, will probably create a better situation for peace. What we got in return, that the PLO was controlling Gaza from 2005, 2007. 2007, the PLO was pushed out by Hamas. Hamas took power, and since 2007 until now, we have Hamas terror organization armed with missiles. From cycle to cycle, they are stronger, they have more missiles, more rockets, and they have ability to eat heavier the Israeli population. This is the situation right now. And as I see, they would prepare for the next round by more rockets, more missiles, and maybe more accurate. So that's it.
Doron, how do you explain that the quantity of missiles, the quantity of weapons? I always understood that they have been imported, or the materials have been imported through the system of tunnels. Now, each time there is an attack from Gaza, you people destroy the tunnels, and still there is all this material to fight Israel. And the second question in that context, will Iron Dome be able to prevent missiles from hitting their goals?
Number one, about the smuggling. We succeed, the Israelis prevent smuggling from the sea and air, but we do not control 14 kilometers of the border between Egypt and Gaza Strip. This 14 kilometers controlled by the Egyptian army, and we know there are tunnels, and they continue smuggling from Sinai inside Gaza. So this is one channel. Then the next element is the military industry, which the Hamas created inside Gaza. They have a military industry, and they produce rockets and missiles by themselves. They have engineers, they have scientists, they have industry under city. They call it the metro. The metro is the underground city, which they dug in order to have a shelter from Israeli bombardment. So this shelter is a place of industry, of the missiles and rocket industry, of the Hamas engineers, but also this shelter was heavily attacked by Israeli Air Force, and many terrorists, many Hamas terrorists were killed inside. So it's also a trap. Now they understand that there are tunnels, that they have two kinds of tunnels. One kind of tunnels is the metro, is underneath Gaza, underneath the city. And then they have another kind of tunnel, which is the attack tunnel. The attack tunnel are tunnel which directed from Gaza Strip inside Israel in order to kidnap soldiers, to kidnap citizens. So luckily, we succeeded to destroy most of the tunnels, the attack tunnel from Gaza outside into Israel. And we succeeded also to heavily hit the metro. And many terrorists were killed underneath. So they continue smuggling, and they continue producing missiles. And this is one of the problems, that they continue create their own industry underneath.
So Iron Dome, people say the rain of missiles being shooted, you say, I guess, is a problem for your defense system, for it cannot resist so many missiles at a time. Is that correct? Are you enlarging a system, or what's happening there?
Number one, Israel is having a great advantage by the Iron Dome, which is defensive system. So the Iron Dome enable us to shoot only those missiles who are moving toward populated area in Israel. The radar of the Iron Dome, from the beginning, from launching inside Gaza, identify the missiles and know accordingly the direction, the range, and the place that the missile would be landing. And it can avoid those missiles that would be landing inside Gaza, some of the missiles landing inside Gaza, some of the missiles going to empty area, not populated area. So the Iron Dome, which until now show us about 90% of success, proving 90% success. This is very high range of efficiency for this defensive system. And take in account that Israel is the only country in the world among modern countries to have such a system. It's made by Rafael. It's an Israeli system. And of course, in the future, more systems would come in order to support and increase the deception and capacity, the targeting capacity of the Iron Dome. It's very successful relatively to any other system in modern military. So right now, yes, so we are satisfied from the results of the Iron Dome. But of course, after every round, we need to improve our system, and we need to be better prepared to the next round with more missiles, more projectiles, better efficiency, and new systems. Also, we need to develop new systems.
I see. I understood from your biography that you're also dealing with the Bedouins. Now, they are one of the minorities in Israel who at the end of the day wouldn't live maybe nowhere else. Can you tell us a little bit about the attitude of the various minorities during this situation, especially the Bedouins are also wandering between the countries, right?
We have about 250,000 Bedouins, well, Muslims living in south of Israel.
Exactly.
Between Beersheba to Mitzpe Ramon, south of Israel, Negev. 250,000 Muslims that about 30 years ago, they were secular, totally secular. Due land conflict between the Bedouin and the state of Israel, the state of Israel still didn't solve the land conflict between about 3,000 Bedouins. So they created illegal communities. And the illegal communities means that the state of Israel do not support public area, developing public area. Due to this conflict, or in this lacuna, in this vacuum, the Islamists came inside, funding the Islamic brothers and funding, building Islamic society, inciting the Bedouin, or some of the Bedouin, against the state of Israel. On the other hand, I want to tell you that most of the Bedouin are good citizens. I'm operating a village for disabled children and people. And I have 600 workers. Among the 600 workers, about 100 are Bedouins. I have doctors and nurses and psychologists and administrators and caregivers, and they're really excellent. Also, I want to tell you that as the commander of the Israeli South Command, I had a battalion. Still, the Israeli, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, having Bedouin forces, Bedouin battalion. In the Southern Command, we had the Bedouin battalions, and many soldiers that served under my command were killed in action to defend the state of Israel. They are good soldiers, they are good scouts, they're fighting for the state of Israel. Some of them sacrificed their life to defend the state of Israel. So this is a complicated issue. From one side, they are Muslims, and they are incited by outside, by the extremists, by the Islamists. From the other side, they are citizens of the state of Israel. What does it mean? I said there are 250,000 Bedouins. Number one, most of them loyal and good citizens for the state of Israel. Number two, there are some Bedouins who continue obeying the Islamists and trying to oppose the state of Israel policy, and they do riots. They try to use, to provoke other citizens for rioting and protesting against the state of Israel. But this is real a minority. The numbers are very low. When you watch the TV, you may see a demonstration. So the demonstration may be with about 20 or 30 people, but I said there are 250,000. So you may see a demonstration of about 30 people protesting against the state of Israel. And you may think, wow, all the Muslims in Israel against the state of Israel, but this is totally not true. You know, as I said, you know, I give services to all the citizens who are living in south of Israel, including the 250,000 Bedouins. There are about 1 million people living in south of Israel, from Kiryat Gat to Elat.
Yeah.
1 million people. And I'm having 2 hospitals. One is eye-dependent unit, one rehabilitation hospital in my village. So people after accident arriving to get physiotherapy, hydrotherapy, psychiatric advice, communication therapy. I have many, on the medical staff, I have many Bedouins who are getting out from the Bedouin communities and coming every day to work. No one absent, no one absent in this time. During this time of war between Israel and Gaza, the Bedouins are loyal and coming to work, and they are good citizens of the state of Israel. And among the 250,000 Bedouins, yes, there are some extremists and Islamists who provoke and trying also to protest against the state of Israel. And we need to solve the conflict of land between the state of Israel and the Bedouins. And we need also to give them the highest standard on everything like any other citizen, which means number 1, education. Number 2, jobs. Number 3, developing their communities. They need to be living in modern communities, not just in tent in the desert, a tent in the desert, a modern communities. And as I said, number 1, the education, number 2, jobs. So we need to develop the Bedouin communities. It's a great challenge for the state of Israel. I think we do a lot right now, but not enough. We need to do more in order to give them better treatment, better education, better communities. And that's another challenge of the state of Israel. You know, 73 years old, new, young country, yes, that's another challenge.
Talking about challenges, maybe we come a little bit to politics. The overall impression people have abroad, many people I talk to, is that a crisis, whenever it comes in favor of Netanyahu and his administration, because otherwise he would have to be convicted, or your country would have no elections. So is there a construct in this country taking advantage of what the situation is right now in politics, I mean?
I agree that the political situation in Israel is complicated right now. In 2 years, we run 4 times election. And Netanyahu is having 3 conviction, and he continue claiming that he is no guilty. Mm-hmm. It all need to be proved in trial, mm-hmm. by the justice system, and Israel is a complicated country, so it's all together. We have right now a kind of stalemate in political system. Maybe Israel will move to another cycle of election. Maybe, as you know, right now the president gave the second party leader, Yair Lapid, the opportunity to build a government. And if he doesn't succeed, he needs to go back to the president, and then the president may go back to Prime Minister Netanyahu, give him another time to build a government. And if Netanyahu doesn't succeed, we may go to another cycle of election, number 5 in 2 years, which is it's amazing, you know. With yes, the country, by many aspects, the country continue moving forward. If you take COVID-19, so Israel, mm-hmm. most of the population is immune. Yeah. The population in Israel behaving like in the period before COVID-19, and society right now feel much better comparing the period of lockdown. But on the other side, there are more than 2 years that we have no governmental budget and planning, and the stability of 4 years government. And that's making the situation, the political situation, very unstable. Yeah. So the people hoping that somehow the formula to give stability by 4 years government would be found. I hope myself also that the politician will find the formula to continue stating a new government for 4 years, bringing annual budget, which is elementary to manage a country, any country, especially complicated country like Israel. And moving forward, we have so many challenges, you know, any arena, any front which you look at to the north or south, our enemies, so militarily, politically, economically, education, you know, the people in Israel thirsty for stability and getting back to normality. Mm-hmm. And I very much hope that would be able to find formula. The politician would find the formula to bring us the stability.
Yes, I have a question of one of our participants, and I must say I cannot see, I don't know, technical difficulties continue. I cannot see any participant. So if you have questions, please write them. Anyway, here's your question. What does the Egyptians do to prevent people from smuggling, from trafficking through the tunnels between Gaza and Egypt?
What we have right now partnership. First of all, we have a peace accord with Egypt, Israel and Egypt having a peace accord. And we have also some military cooperation. And the Egyptian working effectively against the smugglers and Hamas terrorists trying to smuggle from Sinai and Egypt into Gaza. So, and the Egyptians also in Sinai Peninsula, they are fighting terror. They're fighting terrorists. There are terrorists in Sinai, and the Egyptian fighting a terror cell inside Sinai. And there's some cooperation between Israel, the IDF, and the Egyptian. We don't have 100% success. And from this reason, the smuggling continue. But there is good cooperation, military cooperation between the Egyptian and the IDF. We need honestly to tell ourselves that without the Egyptian, also in the past, the terrorists succeeded. We do not control everything, or we are not 100% on any front. So, but bottom line, we have good cooperation with the Egyptian.
Good. So I have somebody asking you about the role of Iran regarding the influence they have on the supply of weapons to Gaza, to maybe schooling of engineers. And also he adds the question, do you expect, should Europe do more about that? Should Europe more interfere in your situation?
Absolutely, yes. Iran tried to destabilize the Middle East and control Lebanon. They have proxies in Lebanon. Hezbollah is proxy of Iran. They have forces and terrorist organization in Syria. They have terror organization in Africa, and then they try also. Didi, 1 minute. Didi, יש לי פה טלפונים, בואי קחי רגע, אבנט ויאנקל רימר, בואי קחי רגע את הטלפון שלי. Just 1 minute. So yes, Iran trying to influence terrorists and undermine Israel all over the Middle East. Didi, קחי רגע. So yes, absolutely. Iran trying to indirectly right now, fight Israel by proxies, by Hezbollah in Lebanon, by Iranian proxies in Syria, and by Hamas in Gaza, and try to influence from any arena by Islamic movement, supplying weapon, indoctrinating, supply missiles, rocket industry, technicians. And on the other end, Iran continue striving to get nuclear capacity. So, we need just to listen what they say, need to listen to the declaration. It's Hamas and Hezbollah and the Islamists and Iranian. They do not recognize the state of Israel. They do not see any place to compromise. They speak about destruction of the state of Israel. and they prepare themselves to another round of war against Israel. It may be a war by proxy, like this war against Hamas. It may be another round with Hezbollah. It may be well coordinated between Hamas and Hezbollah in the future. Forces of terror organization in Syria, or maybe well orchestrated attack by Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. 4 fronts. So this is a situation, you know, where there is no peace negotiation between Israel and its enemies. And if you ask yourself, what is the goal of Israel? Israel would like to have peace treaty with all its neighbors. For the long range, Israel would love to have peace accord with all its neighbors, like with Egypt and Jordan right now, and some of the Gulf countries. But I don't see right now a situation that they give up the ideology, the extremist ideology. So we need to know that this is a situation. They never gave up the ideology, the extremist ideology, and they continue preparing themselves to another round against Israel, producing long-range missiles, producing nuclear capacity. For what? For what? Just ask for what? So we need to prepare ourselves from one side to another cycle of violence, another cycle of war. From the other side, of course, would love to have peace in the long range. But number one, it needs to be recognized that the state of Israel is having the right for existence. This is elementary demand, to have the right of existence. So the moment I hear our enemies in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Iran giving Israel the right of existence, maybe will have some flexibility in their minds and readiness to move forward in political momentum, negotiation, whatever. Until then, we need to prepare ourselves.
The same person was asking about your view on the role of Europe. Do you think Europe is doing enough for Israel? Do you think, what do you expect from Europe?
I would expect that Israel is a democracy. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And Israel society is very pluralistic. You got in everything, in Israel, you got everything. You got a society of tolerance, of human rights. You know, take for account the village that I established in south of Israel. In my village, I have Muslims, Jews, and Christians living in full harmony together. I don't know if you're aware, but I have Germans. I have people who came from Germany volunteering in my village, and all of them united on one thing: assisting disabled people, loving, caring disabled people. You know, and my village is a paradise, a small paradise in the state of Israel. But, you know, it's a micro community which show what is Israel. What is Israel? Israel is not a totalitarian country like Iran. Israel is not controlled by Ayatollah. Israel is not controlled by fanatic, by extremists. Israel is a liberal country with all sides of population, pluralistic society. We have religious from one side, we have seculars, no difference between religion and color of people. Israel is a democratic country, the only democratic country in the Middle East. So on this basis, the basis of values, of administration, of honoring and respecting any human being, Islamist or Jews or Christians, I think that that I would expect that no anti-Semitism would be shown in Europe. I would expect that Europe would show to Israel a kind of, on some side, even admiration on what Israel succeeded to do by the pluralistic approach, by the openness, by the kind of democracy, also culture, agriculture, economy, you know, any aspect of modern community, modern society. Israel, I think, is a role model of modern country, pluralistic, open society. So what I expect, yes, I expect Europe to support Israel. I expect Europe to fight against any kind of anti-Semitism and to see Israel as a partner to modern country in the world, and understand that Israel is attacked by fanatic, by extremists, by Islamists, by this axis of evil, led by Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah. Israel is far away from this regimes, and I would expect Europe to support Israel, to understand Israel. That's it.
The next question goes in the same direction. Once the war is over, or the riots in Ramle and Lot, will the wounds between the Arab population and the Jewish population heal, or is there a big gap then, or how do you see that?
I see there is tension between Arabs and Israelis. It has not started right now. It started since '48. It started from the beginning, but there are tension also in Israel society. Yes, there is tension between Muslims and Jews on some of the cities in Israel, like Akko, in north of Israel. In the past, also in Haifa. Right now, not in Haifa. Haifa is, I think, is a role model of existence, of coexistence between Arabs and Jews. We need to find it. You know, it's question of leadership. It's question also of conditions. It's question of feeling, how the Arabs, Israelis are feeling as citizens of the state of Israel. Of course, it's internal issue. And this is a kind of tension which we are facing, a challenge. We need to improve it. We need to improve the relationship between the Arabs who are citizens of the state of Israel and Jews, of course, in our communities, like in Lud and Ramle, as you said. But no, I'm living about 10 kilometers from Ramle. There is market in Ramle, and most of the time I find myself together with my wife going to shop in this market, and we dine with the Arabs. We speak with the Arabs. Many of the Arabs are having good economy, and some of them rich, some of them contractors, some of them build all over Israel, some of them having a restaurant, entertainment, doctors. We have many doctors from the Arab communities. You may find Arabs in hospitals, in pharmacies in Israel, also in theater. I think most of the Arabs very well integrated in Israel. That's not saying that there is no inside protest, inside sometime rage on being Muslim in a Jewish state, or feeling that there is some discrimination. Yes, also among Jews. You know, you have Moroccan Jews, you have Ashkenaz, you have Sephardic, and so even among Jews, the tension. But basically, I think the state of Israel supply good opportunity for everyone and willing to have good relationship. I can tell you that after some of the events and clash between Jews and Arabs in Ramle and Lud and Akko and Negev, like in Rat, the Bedouin communities, many Israelis, Jews and Arabs, saying and repeating again and again and again, we need to find the formula to live peacefully together. It's at our hand. Many of my WhatsApp message from Arabs, for instance, Lieutenant Colonel in military, Wahid al-Uzail. Wahid al-Uzail is a Bedouin living in Rat. It's a 60,000 Bedouins, a town of 60,000 Bedouins. Wahid al-Uzail, after some of the demonstration of the Muslims in Israel, he wrote me WhatsApp yesterday. We need to arrange Muslims and Jews working in full harmony and proving the society in Israel that we can do it together. And there are many good cooperation, many places of good cooperation between Arabs and Jews working peacefully for business, for other goals, and they do very well, including my village, as I stated.
Mm-hmm. Doron, as we move towards the end of our evening, I would like to discuss shortly the situation in Europe. Matter of fact, I have a question here. The person wants to know if there is any PR plan, if PR in the US and in Europe from the side of Israel should be enhanced in the sense to show that Israel is not the aggressor, to explain the situation, because to him, and I totally agree, it seems that the PR efforts of Fatah, of Hamas, are much more efficient and louder than the Jewish, the Israeli efforts. And in that context, we also ask ourselves over here whether the massive attack of anti-Semitism we see in most German towns lately, is that like an imported anti-Semitism of Muslims reaching this country, because it seems it's not the 5% who were always anti-Semitic in Germany. So give me some thoughts about that, about the topic Germany, anti-Semitism, and what are you going to do, not you, but your country, to get better PR results over here?
I really don't know what the state of Israel would do in respect of PR or improving our PR, but I'm certain that mass of media and social media right now is a new challenge for my generation. As we said in this meeting, I'm 70 years old. You know, and Claudia, I believe that when you was born also, there was no laptop and no
2 years less, Doron.
no Instagram and Facebook and so on. So I think, yes, also we need to improve our PR capacity by working with you know, there is a statement in Judaism, Chanoch lanar al pi darko. It's educate the boy according to his way. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, that take the 14 years old and the 12 years old and the 15 years old, what they understand media, how they buy, for instance, I have a granddaughter, she's 14. She buy perfume of a lady who have about 80 million supporters, followers. Mm-hmm. I don't know the name of the lady, but she knows. But yeah. What is 80 million followers? So it's something new that, so yes, we need to be much faster, much quicker to bring our message to the young population over Europe and over the United States. Maybe we are too old and too slow on and using archaic PR to deliver our message. But I'm certain that we are the right people here in the Middle East. That's why we are not welcome since, you know, the state of Israel was born by war. My parents was born here under the British mandate. Mm-hmm. And they had one dream all their childhood. And that was one day to have a Jewish state. And no need to tell you that 6 million were killed in the Second World War. And yes, they wanted a Jewish state. That was their dream. And the state of Israel was established by a war. From day one, from Declaration of United Nations 181 in November 29, 1947, the Arabs didn't get the two-state solution. Resolution 181 from November 29, 1947 was two-state solution. The Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. They continue saying no. So my parent generation were ready to compromise, to have this country splitted by two states. Yes, they were ready. You know what the United Nations proposed in November 29, 47? They proposed 17% of the land to the Jews, 43% to the Palestinian, and 40% to international. Jerusalem was declared as international city, and some of the land was held by the international community. That was the beginning, only 17% of the land. And then 1.5 year war between 600,000 Jews, about half of them, Holocaust survivors. And they fought against 7 armies who invaded. The last British soldiers left May 15, 1948. On the same day, 5 Arab armies invaded. And my parent generation fought few against many, and they paid high price. 1% of the population were killed in the war, in the independence war. 6,000 from 600,000 were killed. That was the price, very high price. But they won the war. So Israel was established by a war. Since then, you know, the language of Hamas here in Gaza is the same language. What they say? They say, we do not recognize the state of Israel existence. We want to get back. The story of Hamas is the Nakba. Nakba is 48. Nakba is getting back to our land, the land that we lost in 48. So that was a conflict between my parent generation, who was born here in Palestine under the British mandate. After 2000, the Jews have no country. After 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. And then first time getting a new Jewish state and stating day and night, I was educated in a home that my parents said, we want peace, we want peace. Maybe this round is the last war. Maybe, and my brother was killed in the Yom Kippur War. Maybe this round is the last round of war between us and the Arabs. And we still continue educating our youngsters for peace. We strive for peace. I want you to know that 5 from my family were killed in suicide bombing in Haifa by a woman from Jenin. Lawyer, supposedly pregnant, came, exploded herself between my uncle Zeev Almog and Ruth, his wife. Ruth was Holocaust survivor, Auschwitz Holocaust survivor, also officer in our Navy. Zeev was 71, Ruth was 70. That was, I'm speaking about October 3rd, 2003. She came between my uncle Zeev and Ruth, exploded. Zeev was killed. Ruth was killed. Their son Moshik, 43 years old, was killed. 2 grandsons, Asaf and Tomer, 9 and 11, were killed. Another 4 were badly wounded. There were 9 around the table. So, you know, we are ready to compromise. We said many times we are ready to compromise, but we didn't get any will of compromise by the other side. Hamas in Gaza, despite the simple fact that we pulled out from Gaza in 2005 and gave 100% of the territorial land back to the Palestinian. We pulled out from Lebanon in 2000, in January 24, 2000, we pulled out from Lebanon. No Israeli soldiers in Lebanon. We expected peace with Lebanon, but Hezbollah took over. What Hezbollah wants? They have any territorial demand? Hamas having any territorial demand? What they want? They don't want to see Jews here. What they say, go back to the countries that you were killed in Second World War. Go back to Poland, go back to Germany, go back to Holland, go back to Russia, go back. The Middle East is not for you. What the Jews are asking, we're asking since November 29, 1947, we ask compromise. That was the Jewish will. The Arab refused. They continue refusing. They continue missing any opportunity for peace. And this is the situation. And I agree with you. Well, the way we do the PR for us maybe is not successful. And from the other side, what I feel that we are right. We have the right of existence. And there is enough land for at least 2 people. And as we started, 17% of the land was given by United Nations, and the Jewish said, yes, we are ready. And the Arabs got 43% of the land. They said, no, refuse for any Jewish state between Jordan River and the Mediterranean. That's it.
Dear Doron, thank you so much. There's not much we can do from this side, although we're always stating. But one thing is sure, the auditorium you have here and Deutsch-Israelische Gesellschaft, and especially your close friend Uwe Becker, we are at your side. Whatever you hear from Germany, whatever you hear from Europe, we are friends of Israel. Israel is here to stay. And whatever you need, and even if it's only psychological support, we want you to rely on us. There are a lot of people in this country who also by the situation now start to understand that the only democracy is not endangered only by itself, but losing it would be a catastrophe to the free world. So I appreciate very much you came, you stayed. Nevertheless, we had technical difficulties, that you were patient with me because I know you're so used to your grandfriend Uwe Becker. But I tell you, he went in a mission for Israel. Otherwise, he would never have given up this evening with you. Maybe we can arrange another one after this round of problems has calmed down. Yes, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties. This is a young man always doing it, and he is fantastic because I would have given up on the round tonight. But thank you, Vincent, for doing that, and thanks to everybody attending us tonight. Doron, I wish you a peaceful evening, peaceful weeks. I wish you peace. Thank you very much. Good night to everybody.
Thank you, Claudia, and come to Israel, come to visit us, and come to volunteer. I'm ready to get volunteers from Germany. Come to see what is Israel.
We spread the voice.
I promise you, after volunteering here a few months or 1 year or more, you will be more supporters and lovers of Israel. And you would understand better what is Israel quality.
Thank you.
And better understand our attitude and maybe be our ambassadors overseas and in Europe.
This is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.